Most people think poverty is about money. It is not. Poverty is a habit, a quiet, respectable, invisible habit that smart people fall into more often than anyone else. Napoleon Hill called it the one thing that kills more dreams than failure ever could, and you are probably doing it right now without even knowing. There's a strange pattern that Napoleon Hill noticed during his 20 years of studying successful people. A pattern that surprised him because it went against everything he expected to find. He assumed, as most people assume, that intelligence was one of the main ingredients of success. It makes sense, does it not? Smarter people should make better decisions, avoid more mistakes, and find faster paths to wealth and freedom. But Hill discovered something that contradicted this completely. He found that extremely intelligent people often struggled more than people of average intelligence. They did not struggle because they were unlucky or because the world was unfair to them. They struggled because their intelligence became a trap, a beautiful, comfortable, invisible cage that kept them exactly where they were while less intelligent people moved past them. Think about someone you know who is very smart. Maybe it is you. Maybe it is a friend or a family member. This person reads constantly. They understand complex ideas easily. They can see problems from 10 different angles before most people have even noticed the problem exists. And yet, somehow, they never seem to break through. They have good jobs, maybe, but not great ones. They have ideas, brilliant ideas, but those ideas never become anything real. They talk about what they could do, what they would do if the conditions were right, if they had more money, more time, more help. And year after year, nothing changes. Napoleon Hill saw this pattern everywhere. He watched brilliant men and women spend years analyzing, planning, perfecting, and waiting, while people with half their intelligence and twice their willingness to act built real success with imperfect plans. And the reason, Hill concluded, was something he called the habit of procrastination dressed up as wisdom. Smart people are very good at coming up with reasons not to act. They can see every risk, every possible failure, every reason why something might not work. And because they can see these things so clearly, they convince themselves that waiting is the smart choice. They tell themselves they are being careful, strategic, responsible. But underneath all that beautiful reasoning, something else is happening. They are afraid, not of failure exactly, but of looking foolish, of trying something and having it not work while other people watch. Their intelligence has given them a high standard to live up to, and that high standard has frozen them completely. They would rather dream about what they could do than risk discovering that they cannot do it. And that quiet, respectable fear keeps more smart people poor than any other force on earth. Napoleon Hill had a name for this pattern, though he did not call it by a fancy psychological term. He called it overpreparation, and he warned against it more urgently than almost any other habit. Overpreparation feels productive. It feels responsible. You are researching, learning, gathering information, talking to experts, making lists, refining your ideas. You are doing something. So you do not feel lazy. You feel smart. You feel careful. You feel like someone who is getting ready to do something important. But here is the trap, and it is a cruel one. Overpreparation is not preparation at all. It is procrastination wearing a mask. And the mask is so convincing that even very intelligent people cannot see through it. They believe they are preparing. They believe they are being thorough. They believe that if they just gather a little more information, learn one more skill, save a little more money, then they will finally be ready to act. But that day never comes. Because there is always more information. There is always another skill that could be useful. There is always a reason to wait just a little longer. And while they wait, while they prepare, while they perfect their plans, someone else is acting. Someone with a worse plan, less information, fewer skills, and absolutely no patience for waiting until everything is perfect. That person is making mistakes, learning from them, and moving forward. The smart person is still researching. Hill studied this closely, and he noticed something fascinating about the most successful people he interviewed. They were not the smartest people in the room. They were not the most educated or the most analytical. They were the people who had learned to act before they felt ready. They had learned to tolerate uncertainty, to make decisions with incomplete information, to start before they knew exactly what they were doing. And that ability, Hill said, was worth more than all the intelligence in the world. Because intelligence without action is just entertainment for the mind. It feels good. It feels impressive. But it produces nothing. The man who reads 100 books about swimming but never gets in the water will drown just as fast as the man who never read any books at all. The woman who studies business for 10 years but never starts one will never know if her ideas could have worked. And the saddest part, the part that haunted Napoleon Hill, is that these intelligent, careful, over-prepared people never even fail. They just fade. They live comfortable, modest lives, always wondering what might have happened if they had acted a little sooner, taken a little more risk, trusted themselves a little more. They die with their music still inside them, as the saying goes, and the world never gets to see what they could have built. That is the Napoleon Hill trap that feels like wisdom, and it is quietly destroying more dreams than failure ever could. Let me tell you about a man who had every reason to wait, every reason to prepare longer, every reason to gather more information before he acted. His name was Henry Ford, and before he became one of the most famous industrialists in history, he was a nobody with an impossible idea. Ford wanted to build a car that was affordable for ordinary people, not just the wealthy. At the time, cars were handmade, expensive, and unreliable. Every expert in the industry said that Ford's idea was foolish. They said it could not be done. They said that even if it could be done, nobody would buy it. And here is what is important about the story. Henry Ford was not an engineer. He had no formal training in automobile design. He had no money, no factory, no team of experts. By every reasonable measure, he was not ready to build the car he imagined. A smart person, a careful person, an over-prepared person would have spent years studying engineering, raising money, building connections, waiting until all the conditions were right. But Henry Ford did something that looks foolish from the outside. He started anyway. He built his first car in a small brick shed behind his house. He used whatever materials he could find. He made mistakes constantly. His early cars were rough, imperfect, and sometimes broke down after a few miles. But he learned something from every failure. And while he was learning, while he was making mistakes, while he was building imperfect cars with imperfect knowledge, the experts who knew better were still preparing. They were still studying. They were still waiting for the perfect moment that never came. Ford did not wait. He acted, failed, adjusted, and acted again. And within a few years, he had built the Ford Motor Company and revolutionized the entire world. Napoleon Hill studied Ford carefully, and he noticed something that most historians miss. Ford was not successful because he was the smartest person in the room. He was successful because he was willing to look foolish. He was willing to start before he was ready. He was willing to fail publicly, repeatedly, while people who thought they knew better watched and shook their heads. And that willingness, Hill said, is the single most important quality for anyone who wants to build something real. Because readiness is a myth. There is no perfect time. There is no moment when you will have all the information, all the skills, all the confidence you think you need. The people who build extraordinary lives are not the ones who waited until they were ready. They are the ones who started before they were ready and learned to become ready along the way. Henry Ford did not know how to build a car when he started building cars. He learned by building. He learned by failing. He learned by failing and thing badly until he could do it well. And that is the secret that over-prepared people never discover, because they never start. They wait for readiness that never arrives. While the world is built by people who are willing to begin before they are ready, there is a cost to waiting that almost nobody talks about, because it is invisible and silent and impossible to measure. When you wait for the perfect conditions, when you wait until you feel ready, when you wait until you have more information or more money or more confidence, you are not just delaying your success. You are slowly, quietly training your mind to believe that you are not capable. Every day you wait, the voice in your head gets a little louder. See, you are not taking action. That must mean you are not ready. That must mean you are not the kind of person who can do this. And over time, that voice stops being a whisper and becomes a belief, a deep, invisible belief that you are not a doer, that you are not a builder, that you are someone who dreams but never arrives. Napoleon Hill called this the death of definiteness of purpose, and he said it was more dangerous than any external obstacle, because external obstacles can be overcome. Lack of money can be solved. Lack of skills can be learned. Lack of connections can be built. But a belief that you are not capable, a belief that has been reinforced by years of waiting and preparing and never acting, that belief is much harder to break. It becomes part of your identity. You stop telling people about your dreams. You stop feeling the excitement you once felt. The fire that used to burn inside you becomes a small, flickering flame that you protect from the wind, afraid that any real action might extinguish it completely. And here is the cruelest part of all. While you are waiting, while you are protecting that small flame, you are also watching other people succeed, people who started with less than you, people who knew less than you, people who had no business succeeding but did it anyway. And every time you see someone like that, the voice gets louder again. Why not you? What is wrong with you? You do not have an answer, so you look for more information, more preparation, more reasons to wait just a little longer. The cycle continues. Napoleon Hill studied this cycle for 20 years, and he concluded that the difference between people who build extraordinary lives and people who do not is not intelligence, not talent, not luck, not even hard work. It is the willingness to act before you are ready, to tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty, to make decisions with incomplete information, to look foolish while you learn, to fail publicly and keep going anyway. Most people never develop this willingness because it feels wrong, it feels irresponsible, it feels like something a smart person would never do. But Hill discovered that the smart people who succeed are the ones who learn to override that feeling. They learn to act despite it. They learn that readiness is not something you wait for, but something you create by taking action. And they learn that the cost of waiting is always, always higher than the cost of failing. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, not with what sounds good, but with what is true in the quietest part of your heart. What have you been waiting for? What dream have you been preparing for, researching, planning, thinking about, but never actually starting? How many years have you been getting ready? How much more information do you need before you finally take the first step? And here is the harder question, the one Napoleon Hill would ask you if he were sitting across from you right now. What if the waiting is the problem? What if all your preparation, all your research, all your careful planning is not helping you succeed, but is actually the very thing keeping you stuck? What if the only thing standing between you and the life you want is your willingness to look foolish, to fail publicly, to start before you are ready? I am not telling you to be reckless. I am not telling you to quit your job tomorrow or invest your savings in a risky idea or ignore all practical wisdom. That is not what Napoleon Hill taught. What he taught is that there is a difference between wise preparation and endless preparation. Wise preparation has a deadline. Wise preparation leads to action. Wise preparation says, I will learn what I can in the next 30 days, and then I will begin, even if I am not perfect. Endless preparation has no deadline. Endless preparation always needs just one more book, one more course, one more conversation before it can act. Endless preparation feels responsible, but it is actually fear wearing a suit and pretending to be wisdom. And the people who build extraordinary lives have learned to recognize that suit. They have learned to say, enough. I have enough information. I have enough skill. I have enough courage. I am starting now. Not because they are ready, but because they understand that readiness comes from action, not before it. You do not become confident by thinking about confidence. You become confident by doing something difficult and discovering that you survived. You do not become capable by reading about capability. You become capable by trying, failing, learning, and trying again. So here is your quiet awakening, the one that could change everything starting tomorrow morning. Pick one thing you have been waiting to do, one dream you have been preparing for, one step you have been too afraid to take, and take it. Not a big step, not a perfect step. Just one small, imperfect, scary step in the direction of what you want. Do it before you feel ready. Do it while you are still afraid. Do it while the voice in your head is listing all the reasons you should wait longer, and then do it again the next day and the next. That is how people build extraordinary lives, not by waiting for readiness, but by creating it, one imperfect action at a time. That is the Napoleon Hill truth no one talks about. And now you know it. The only question left is what you will do with it.